Hello and welcome to Thoughts You're Woke No Speed Limit Podcast. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and please leave a comment. Today, we have a special guest in the house, Dr. Will Board, who is running for governor as a Democrat in the state of Alabama. Just one question. You woke? Time to get up. So, Dr. Wilborg, I want to thank you today for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Great, great. Thank you for coming. And now, here's how let folks at home know a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Will Boyd, and I'm running for governor of this great state of Alabama. And I'm running because I want every Alabamian to have a shot at the American dream. So, the three things I commonly talk about are the economy, healthcare, and community. But a little bit about me is by degree, I am a mechanical engineer, a master of business administration, but also I've taught as it relates to the classroom, issues that relate to business, religion. I pastor a 166-year-old church. I'm a bishop to churches worldwide. As I already said, a mechanical engineer, a professor, a dean, an educator, a father to three, a husband to one wife. We've been married 27 years. We were married June 20th, 1998, and we're just all about service. So my parents raised me to be a servant leader, and that's what I'm all about, trying to serve the people of Alabama, in this case, as governor.
Great, great. So, with that being said, I know you said that you're a pastor. So,
Yes, yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
this is a question that kind of it always is one of those things I have to ask a pastor. What gets a pastor into wanting to run for politics?
Well, I don't even like saying I'm a politician. I'm a servant leader who is in politics, obviously, but politics is basically helping other people to understand their rights and to get resources. So when we look throughout the word or we look at what a pastor typically does, his or her job is usually making sure people in the community, in the church, as she or he is the shepherd, the under shepherd to Christ, of course, trying to make sure people have what they need, leading them in those paths away from dangerous things, making sure they have everything they need to survive and thrive. And that's what I'm doing in my role. I've served as a chairman of a Democratic Executive Committee in Lauderdale County. I've served on the State Democratic Executive Committee. I was a nominee for U.S. Rep, as you already know, United States Representative for 5th Congressional District, Lieutenant Governor nominee, and of course, first African American male to become the nominee for our state for U.S. Senate. I've served even as a city councilman, the first African American elected in Illinois, in a particular place where I was called Greenville, Illinois. So I understand service. The most important thing to me, even at church, any church for that matter, is making sure I help people get again the resources they need. Help them to understand how to live, how to make it through this journey and be successful. One leadership goal that I talk about, or one leadership theory that I talk about often without calling it out, is path goal theory. I believe when you look at the paths people want to take, you figure out how to help them get there, moving barriers out of the way along the path, obstacles out of the way. And so that's what I'm about. Pastors, ministers, anybody who serves in a church should be about making sure they help people get what they need, whether that's a closer walk with God, whether that's making sure they're the resources they need in the community to eat, to make sure they have resources that they can tap into to find the jobs they need to provide for their families. That's what the church typically has been about, making sure people are helped.
Now, going there because as a pastor, you talked about a lot of things. I've listened to a lot of your speeches. Alabama is ranked 45th in education. We rank 34th in reading, 32nd in math.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have a 9% graduation rate in a state where it seems like some people are just not prepared for the workforce. How, as a governor, would you fix those issues?
Well, I have the unique opportunity to serve as the Dean of Student Success. at one of the colleges I served. And that role involved me following a Tinto model that was about preparedness and connectedness. You just mentioned people not being prepared. We have a lot of jobs that are open, but people don't have the right skill set. We have people who could go and work, but they're not prepared. They don't have the right reading scores, math scores, or preparation when they leave high school to go out and meet those job demands. That being said, I would become the chief person at student success by making sure that we have schools that are all with zip codes that receive the same amount of equitable treatment, making sure that schools are not underfunded, making sure that we're not robbing the educational trust fund and making it the educational slush fund, making sure that money is restricted specifically for schools. But let's drill down further. When you have a student who comes into, let's just say, a college, and they don't have the right education as it relates to English and math, instead of jumping right into English 101 or Math 101, you help them with Math 0900, 090 or English 090. I did this as a dean. We had people who were first generation college students, and I brought them in during the summer and let them take those courses weeks in advance. They understood the layout of the campus, preparedness. Now, the connectedness comes in whenever I match them up with people who are already in their degree area or the major that they're going into. And then ultimately, I had somebody in their career area married to them, so to speak, or around them. So as they're trying to become a nurse, as they're trying to become an engineer or trying to become a radio talk show host, they have somebody in communication that they can talk to that's already there, maybe letting them run a radio station for a little while with them or shadowing them as they have shows. So this is what we have to do at the collegiate level. But let's back it all the way back up to pre-K. We have the number one pre-K program in the
True.
nation,
True.
but only 40% of our young people who are in that age range can enjoy it. Why is that? It should be that everyone should have it. So this involves, even lastly, and I could say a whole lot more I could talk about on that subject alone, being an educator for a whole hour. But I believe this is a thing that we have to embrace. A lot of people don't quite understand, but I believe it's important. We need a lottery in Alabama. We need to have an educational lottery set up so that instead of us seeing where Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida have the kids with degrees that are paid for, Alabama has that same type of security that our students are prepared. We have brain drain in Alabama instead of brain gain. So we need to also not necessarily pay off everybody's student loan, but we need to make sure we offer incentives to people. Say if we have a critical needs program for people who want to become educators,
Right.
teachers, we offer them a $15,000 student loan forgiveness so that when they come out, they feel again that Alabama is supporting them and encouraging them to stay and teach for so many years before going somewhere else.
Now, on that lottery, I'm 52 years old. I've been hearing about the lottery since I was a little boy. And it's always, the bill always comes up, Democrat or Republican, has come up, and somehow it just never manages to pass. What would you do differently to get that bill passed?
Well, I believe we have to do what I just did, lay out why it's important for us to have a lottery, lay out the importance again of us having uh, equitable monies given towards different schools across the state of Alabama. Talk about the fact that a lottery would bring in anywhere from on the low end 800,000 to some estimate over $1 billion that will help our students out in doing well. So when you start laying out what $1 billion can do, it's amazing. Now I'll just jump in and say that when I become that nominee in May, I'm going to be facing off likely with the person, Tommy Tuberville, who wants to spend 1 billion, 1.13 billion, or 1.3 by some people's estimates on prisons or what we call cages instead of
Right.
on our children. So you have to ask yourself in Alabama, why in the world is our focus on building prisons rather than building schools? That tells you right there that there's something wrong with this. So this whole mindset has to change it. And that's how we do it. We talk about the benefits of the lottery.
Now, I totally agree with you on this. And, usually as an interview, you're not supposed to say that, but that's me. Uh, I agree with that. Education is fundamental to stopping crime. Now,
Absolutely.
there is major crime issues in people's minds. We have seen the struggles that major cities like Birmingham, Montgomery have faced. What do you think as a governor you can do to help improve the issue in our state? And you just stated some of those things, but what are some of the other things you think you could do?
Well, particularly as it relates to education, and opportunities in communities, when people have an opportunity to get a decent paying job, a job that's not $7.25 an hour, but closer to a living wage, where they can work 8 hours a day and enjoy 8 hours worth of pay, where they can work hard and then play hard, so to speak, where they can have secure communities where people are not disadvantaged based on skin color or a geographical region, again, a zip code. I think that's how you create safer communities so that the haves and the have-nots are not always battling each other. You have to make sure that broadband is available in these communities. So I want to, by 2027, have 97% of our state covered with broadband so that people who are in some of these lower income communities, or let's just say in the Black Belt, are not in places where they have to go to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's just to get on the internet so they can do well in school. So these are ways that you can help bring down crime. Now, we don't need the National Guard in Alabama, in Birmingham, Mobile, Huntsville. What we need is basically partnership with the governor's office and people who are already there. Birmingham, Hoover, all of these areas, where I'm sitting right now before I head off to Marshall County next. These are areas where we have people who are well trained at handling police, military issues. And so, long story short, we have qualified people that can deal with crime, but we have to go back and ask ourselves, what is the root cause of the crimes that we're seeing? We also have a problem in Alabama with gun violence. We see where 1,000 people a year die from gun violence. 3,444 people are injured because of gun violence in Alabama. You have to ask yourself, how does that happen? You can sit down, whether you're red, blue, white, black, young, old, around a table and just talk about the benefits of talking about keeping certain guns out of the hands of people who may be desirous of taking lives. We can talk whether we are Second Amendment lovers or people who just call ourselves concerned citizens for the community. We have to
Right.
talk about the need to make sure we keep, again, a constant focus on keeping our community safe. So that's a whole nother discussion as well. But Republicans and Democrats agree with me with even my plan for addressing gun violence as it relates to issues in Alabama.
And speaking on that, like you said, Second Amendment or not, or whatever side you stand on that a particular issue, gun violence is a major issue in the state of Alabama. I can't even tell you the number of times living in the Birmingham area I hear
Absolutely.
gunshots. And
Absolutely.
yes, I've been in Lauderdale County on many occasions,
Yeah.
Killen, Rogersville,
Yes.
Green Hill, all those places. Anyway,
Absolutely.
and they've had problems as well.
Absolutely.
Do you think there needs to be in place laws to limit or train people on how to use weapons?
Of course, we're open carry, but yes, I believe if you're going to handle a firearm, you ought to be able to have training associated with it. So, do I believe it's mandatory somebody sits through an hour-long course or what have you before they can buy a gun? No, I don't. I am a person who would argue, almost all of us are Second Amendment supporters, right? But we want to make sure that as it relates to, let's just talk about some red flag issues, extreme risk protection orders, uh, printing of guns with a 3D printer. These are things that people handling guns who we know may have issues related to mental health. These are things that we want to address. First of all, sir, if we just address the books that are on the law, enforce those, that would make a major difference. But right now, we just have a lot of people who are carrying guns who don't know how to use them. And again, we just have to be very cautious and very careful in Alabama. Again, when people hear how much it costs to address gun issues after the fact, they really want to get involved. But the way we have it is what we're doing right now, have an open discussion. Talk about the fact that when you hear someone has desired to take a loved one's life, then that person shouldn't have a gun, right?
Right.
Uh, it's not that you're not pro Second Amendment. It's the fact that if you hear that somebody wants to inflict harm or danger, you're being proactive to say, let's talk about it. Let's sit down for a minute. So I don't believe in going and compensating guns. People always like to put that on Democrats, particularly. I know Democrats probably have more guns than Republicans do, and probably more pro Second Amendment than
Right.
Republicans are.
Right.
But the issue is how we come to the table and address it.
So you said something else earlier, and I'm kind of going away from the gun issue. you talked about minimum wage. This has always been one of my talking points. I believe increasing the minimum wage, and I believe in you said $20 an hour.
I didn't throw that
Right.
number today, but you're good. I said a realistic living wage, but go ahead, go ahead.
About $20 an hour, right? Yes.
Go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead, go ahead,
So,
go ahead.
with that being said, how would you implement this? Because there's the two sides. There's the one side that says, well, if you just throw out a minimum wage, it's going to cause a loss of jobs,
I
and
know, I know.
and then you have the other side that says, well, wait a minute, there's 2 million jobs that could possibly be created from the million or a
Exactly.
thousand jobs that are lost.
Hmm.
So the question I have is, how would you go about implementing a new increase of the minimum wage?
Well, as governor, I cannot do that, of course, just jump right in and do something like that. But I think what's involved with just the change and the raising of the wage as we get closer to that realistic wage is letting people know, first of all, that if you have more dollars per hour you're paying an employee, that does not immediately translate into the cost of the hamburger going up from, I'm just going to make up a number, $3 to all of a sudden $20, right?
Right.
Best estimates I've seen, and even by conservative people, says that it adds probably a quarter to that hamburger. So that hamburger goes up from $3 or $4, $5 to 5.25. A hamburger. On the other side of it, look at it this way. I jokingly tell people, but I'm very serious. When I travel, I'm also on the road all the time. Sometimes the same person who takes my order at the drive-through is the same person who takes my money at window number one, and the same people who hands me the bag at window number two.
Right.
And if I have to sit there long enough, they ask me would I drive ahead and wait so that they can go back to the grill and be the person who serves so they can take more orders at the same time on the headset. It's cheaper to keep people. It's cheaper to keep or maintain a customer than to go out and get a new one. It's also cheaper to keep an employee in some cases rather than constantly hiring new ones.
If they
So
only knew how
pay
much training costs.
you know how much training costs.
Yeah.
So you want to retain people by paying them an equitable, fair wage so that they can work, be reliable, show up and be there on time. That's what I mean. The cost of doing business now, is tough on some people because their hours had to shorten, or
Right.
they're only open so many hours now because they can't round up enough people on the crew to even open up the facility. And so you have to look at the pros and the cons. And the way I would do it as governor is talk about what a minimum wage step does as you continuously move up towards that minimum wage. And you have to approach it that way incrementally rather than just throwing out $20 as we talked about earlier, because of course everybody's going to oppose it. They're going to say, I can't afford that. Think about the small business owner who's employing 10 people.
Right.
And that person's thinking, how am I going to pay 10 people $20 an hour to work 8 hours a day? We might not even make that much money. So it has to be an open discussion where we discuss it, work with employers, and figure out almost even in a legislative session. I know people get tired of me saying that, but I believe we need to pull people together and let business owners, people sit at the table, blue collar workers, small business owners, large business owners, and let's talk about what this does. So here's my straightforward answer. As governor, that would be one of the legislative sessions I would like to have to address our economy and the wage issue in Alabama. Let's talk about not just trade, readjustment. Let's talk about not just workforce development, but let's talk about the wage increase that we need to be fair and comparable to other wages in other states in the union.
So you just said something that's very important. You're talking about blue collar and white collar workers, all workers. This state has not, and in fact, you've seen legislation not been favorable towards unions. How would you improve that relation to allow places to unionize?
I believe in what I call a blue collar revival. So we only have about 115,000 union people in Alabama. That's your pipe fitters, your steam fitters, your iron workers, your International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, your Communication Workers of America, United Mine Workers. I can run through all of them, right? 115,000 out of 5.8 million. That's not
Right.
a lot of people.
No.
And this is a right to work state. The reason why unions exist in the first place, you might go back to the beginnings of AFL-CIO or go back to perhaps even the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, 1888, and you'll see maybe train workers or some people were coming together saying, we just want to be heard. That's the main thing you want to talk about in Alabama. The unions are there so that, again, I keep using the word equitable, fair, being heard. When you have a state that says, well, maybe we're white right to work, but we want everybody to have that shot again at the American dream, that's how you can bring white collar, blue collar people to the table together and begin to discuss what works well. We could talk about Davis Bacon, NLRB, Labor Relations Board. We could talk about things like the PRO Act that's out there, but for the most part, people just want to know that when they go to work, if they don't feel like they're being treated fairly, somebody will listen to them and that they have a fair shot at being heard and perhaps making a decent living wage-wise, as we just discussed, for the amount of time they put in every day. That's what people really want, and that's why they have unions.
And going on with that one, also, uh, another important thing for working families is community health. And you've worked in community health when you worked in Lauderdale County.
Yes, sir.
Something I've recognized because of the type of job I've done. I've watched clinics where doctors have to go from different clinics in these different rural towns and all these places. The money is not there.
Right, right.
Some places don't have enough ambulances. There are other amenities that are missing. In your in your administration, what would you work on to try to increase rural health?
The biggest thing we could do right away, Mr. Benyon, is to expand Medicaid. And I said, Mr., but Reverend, we we need to expand Medicaid.
Right.
If we just spent $22.8 million, we could actually see where there are $394 million that come into our state. 200,000 people could actually have jobs. 282,696 people who don't have health care could have it. You ran some stats off in the very beginning off the top of your head
Yep.
about how bad we are and where we're at the bottom. This one expansion could actually sit us in a place where we have the 23 hospitals that are right now in a place where they're about to close, to all of a sudden they're doing well. You
Right.
might not have federally qualified healthcare centers in every county right now, but listen, we have over 300,000 people in ambulatory crisis right now. They're in 300,000 people are in ambulatory deserts. Let's make that plainer.
Yeah.
There, there are over a quarter of a million people today in 2025 in Alabama who, if they dial 911, if they tried to call and ask for lifeline, someone had a stroke, atrial fibrillation, paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, had a heart attack, cardiac arrest, trip, fell, whatever it was, they cannot get an ambulance to them in, let's just say, 45 minutes to an hour. And that's not counting the trip back. When we're talking about a stroke, seconds matter. A
Right.
heart attack, seconds matter. And so think about that for a second. We send billions overseas to help other countries, and we have people living like they're in a third world country right here in Alabama. That's not good. So, biggest thing we can do to help rural communities, expand Medicaid. Now, the sitting president talked about some money that could come to us, be available to us, but let me tell you, that money is not going to help rural hospitals. We have over 46% of our hospitals in Alabama operating in the red right now.
Mm.
Think about that for a second. That's nearly 50%. Some
Right.
say 70, but 46%. Let's keep it conservative right now. 46% of our hospitals are operating in the red. That ought to be the scariest thing to some people that, they always want to come in your room before they start the surgery and ask you about your insurance, your health care. But think about it. They don't have enough money. We just talked about McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and the drive-through, but they don't have enough money
Right.
to make budget. 46% of our hospitals in Alabama. It should not be that way. Not to mention, we have almost a million people in poverty in Alabama. There are in certain congressional districts upwards of 150 to 160,000 women alone who don't
Wow.
even have health care. That means their kids don't have health care. So it's unbelievable what's going on in Alabama. And here's the sad part. If you ask anybody in government, why won't we just simply expand it? They can't give you a straightforward reason. But if you look next door into Georgia, they have a Republican governor who is willing to partially expand Medicaid and look at where they are today. So it's possible But you have to ask yourself, why are we this way in Alabama? And that's why I'm running, because I want to make sure we have change, even in these rural hospital areas that are in crisis right now.
Now, uh, going into the healthcare area, this is kind of one of those specific areas. Also, you're a man of faith. Uh, I believe it was February of 2024, our Supreme Court, and this is a issue that's near and dear to my heart. That's why I'm asking this question.
Mhm,
Our Supreme Court ruled basically against IVF
mhm,
uh, treatments in the state.
mhm,
Currently, Kay Ivey says that, well, instead of get making legislation to make it legal, what they did is basically said we're not going to penalize doctors, but there's still a fear in the state.
mhm, mhm.
What would you do in your administration to make that available to families?
Uh, I'll just be straightforward and tell you this. In vitro fertilization is important to many families. Many families are trying very hard to have children and cannot on their own. We don't need to do anything that would block access to IVF. So that is important. Matter of fact, there are the candidates who are running on the ballot who are proponents of this and will tell you that they have children because of IVF. So this is near and dear to the hearts of many people. Here's my general matter view on issues that relate to reproductive health, that relate to families. The government should not have any business interfering with these type healthcare decisions for women and families in general. That should be left to them, period.
Now, I'm going to ask that question that everybody's asking you. Doug Jones just recently entered the race. So, what has this meant for your campaign?
Nothing's changed for my campaign as it relates to our strategy. We've been running this race from day one to win it. We've been running, making sure with the 600 to 700 volunteers that we have, that we follow the message, the plan that I've laid out earlier about the economy, healthcare, and communities. I'm still going to hit the road. Matter of fact, you've caught me in between events today. So
I gotta be on the road myself.
so you understand what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
I'm heading to another event, a pinning ceremony in a little while in Gunnersville, where 47 people who serve well as volunteers are going to be pinned and congratulated for their service. So no, I've not stopped what I'm doing. I continue to go. There's been no coronation. Just because a person sat in office before doesn't mean that they are the ones that's going to be best in the office now. People are looking for a younger, more energetic voice and leader to lead Alabama forward. This is not us going backwards. This is us going ahead. And so I believe I'm that leader that Alabama's looking for. Putting it all on the table. People are wondering, can an African American man do it? I mean, absolutely. People are embracing the fact that this is not about skin color. This is about who has the best opportunity to lead our state where it needs to go. Uh, Experience may be an issue. I've been an experienced person in the community, as a business professor, as a person who leads people to success, as a person who helps people in communities. I mean, you've run through some titles. I'm a Christian clinical therapist. I'm an engineer. I fix problems, right? Won't say all the things that I do, but long story short, I believe Alabama is ready for a Will Boyd type of gubernatorial, not just race, but him sitting in the governor's chair, me sitting there, because I bring a healing to this state. I bring the state together in ways it's never been before. And so again, I welcome anyone who wants to jump into this fight with me. But I want to encourage people, look at what I've done. Look at perhaps his record and look at what he's done. And what you'll see, I think there is a contrast. I'm in this to make sure the people of Alabama again have a shot at the American dream. No other motive for me here. This is not anything about making money or any other desire to climb to some other place. This is again me just trying to lead us all in the right direction.
That moves me on to the next thing. This is a red state, and everybody is harping on the fact that Tommy Tuberville is running for governor in the state of Alabama. You run for office a couple of times. I think you okay. So run against Tuberville. You know that there's that hill to climb. You've been hitting the they call it the Chitlin Circle. You've been you've been going to all the places. Talking to people. You're talking to me today.
Yes, sir.
Um, do you think that you're getting enough name recognition out there to combat what you're up against with Tommy Tuberville?
I do, as far as what I'm doing on my own. But let me tell you this clearly, and you just mentioned the entry of another candidate. Clearly, the media is leaning towards a matchup between Tommy Tuberville and Doug Jones. That's evident. Look at what just happened, but there were probably over 30 articles from one media outlet alone over the last 2 weeks over one candidate, and they didn't mention my name one time. I've been in this race since June. It's no secret. I'm here. I'm working
Right.
hard, but people want to have a matchup. I think from a perspective of just optics and money, Alabama has come to conclusion you need millions upon millions of dollars to run and win. Let me stop right now and just say things are totally different now. You can have all the money you want. Let's look at Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris had let's just say upwards of $1 billion,
Right.
short window to run, but was unsuccessful. That's not saying anything negative about her. I'm just saying if money were the answer, what happened, right? We could go to some others. You just called Doug Jones out. He spent $32 million when he ran against Tommy Tuberville, who spent only 8, and Tommy Tuberville won. So if money is the issue, then why didn't Doug Jones win in that last race and matchup? So what we have to understand is people are now looking beyond money, even though you need it. You need a half a million or so to be on television. The last part of this race, especially leading up to the primary or leading up to the general, you need to be on television. Need to have commercials, but people want to see you with them in the streets. Think about what happened in New York and Virginia.
Right.
This Zoran Mondani created the effect that he was everywhere talking to everyone. There is not a person I know that does not say the same thing about Will Boyd, about me. I'm everywhere talking to everybody. Now they can pick at me and call me the sacrificial lamb of the party. they can they can say I don't have a chance at all. They can say it's an uphill battle. But you know what? The people who are struggling feel like they're already there in Alabama. When you have a grocery tax that the poorest are hit hardest trying to pay,
Right.
when you have people in Alabama, I'm talking about over almost 300,000 who could benefit by Medicaid but don't have it. When you have a disproportionate number of African American people in prison in Alabama don't feel like they have a voice, when you have lines being drawn for congressional districts that are unfair to people of color in Alabama, I can go on and on and on. People feel like they're losing. But when we come together as a collective unit and get behind the candidate who understands the struggle, I believe in this race compared to even a Doug Jones. I understand struggle. I know what it means to have to work hard, to sometimes work twice as hard as my counterparts. I know what it means to have to live paycheck to paycheck or wonder if there's going to be food on the table a week or two out, or maybe even the next day. I know what it is to have, now being realistic, 2 kids in college at the same time and one in elementary school or middle school. I know what it is to struggle in Alabama, a state where we had in one part of the state over 20,000 people who were furloughed or affected by the government shutdown. And overall, another 20,000 people beyond North Alabama who were in the same boat, who weren't getting paychecks for a period of time. People want to know that somebody's going to fight for them. We don't need another politician sitting in the governor's mansion or the chair who is going to make decisions for the 1% and leave the 99 behind. But as a good under shepherd, I'm going to be that one that's going to go after every one of our people in Alabama and make sure they have everything they need to succeed.
So here's a question that kind of goes back into the mainstream of everything we were talking about. So we have technology in Huntsville. We've got Birmingham with medicine and banking. We've got Mobile with shipping, transportation. We got Montgomery, agriculture and manufacturing. You've talked about a fast rail, and I think that's one way to get the talent around from places to places. So, what specifically is your plan on bringing fast rail to the United to Alabama?
Alabama is a state that gives the federal government $1 for every $1 it gives. It asks for three from the federal government. But one thing I would say is we leave a lot of money on the table related to transportation. Alabama could have a high-speed rail system in place today, but for whatever reason, we've chosen not to have it. When we have that high-speed rail, let's say running down the corridors of our Alabama interstates, you can actually jump up in Russell County and say, hey, I want to go to work in, let's just say, Madison County,
Right.
and get on a high-speed rail, travel to Huntsville, be at work in the high-tech sector, work at Redstone Arsenal, or wherever it may be, NASA, and then find your way back home before the sun goes down, and your tax dollars, your revenue, the money you're getting are going towards schools in your area. You could wake up, let's just say in Birmingham on a Saturday morning and say, I want to go shopping down in Mobile. Yeah, they do well with the shipping, and yeah, they have all those great things going on, but Mobile and Baldwin County. And you can go shopping and before 2 or 3 o'clock, be back home with all your bags because you had high-speed rail. Let's make it more simple. You can have what I'm calling RABIT, a rapid bus transit system, to where in the communities, you can have a person who once struggled not being able to make appointments with their OBGYN, that's obstetrician or gynecologist, now being able to get to a hospital because there's a bus route that's actually moving people from, let's just say, Birmingham towards Hoover, or Hoover
Right.
on to Bessemer or to McCalla. This is the type innovation we need as it relates to infrastructure and transportation. This is not new technology. This is not a new thing. It's something we could do today, but we've not done that. And when we do that, yes, you bring together all of those different sectors that I talk about all the time, the innovation, the great work up in North Alabama, the banking, the business here, midway through, and working your way through the wiregrass all the way to the shipping, exporting. That's what we can do when we bring our state together.
Now, this is an important thing because you have been an engineer, so you've worked in environmental uh, jobs. We have these big data centers that are going up. We just talked about, a lot of people are talking about Bessemer. A lot of people felt like they were walked on during that conversation about Bessemer and the data center. The cities are saying that these things will generate new income and for the city and all that. And I'm seeing 35 to 100 employees, which to me doesn't seem like a whole lot.
Right,
What
right.
is your take on data centers, or what should we do as a state to legislate on those things?
I think you might want to ask yourself, what does a footprint like a data center have? What value does it bring? And I know people would argue, data center, a lot of data being processed, so AI can work well and do what it does. But how much water does it consume
Right.
in answering a question? How much more kilowatt hours is it drawing or pulling that's going to show up on my power bill and not necessarily on the state's bill? These are things you have to ask yourself. And this is why people are concerned. I'm all for innovation and data and AI and embracing new technology. But when you have people in the community who already feel like they're being drained, tapped, pulled upon, as I said earlier, is trying to live,
Right.
you force them into something that's going to further tax them or not even represent them, that's a problem. You have to ask yourself, are the 35 to 100 workers even going to come out of Bessemer or come out of the community that the data centers dropped in? Or are they being transplanted from somewhere else?
You're right.
These are questions you
It's a
have to
question you
ask
have to ask.
yourself.
Yeah.
When those kids come into the school, as the new families come in, uh, are there enough teachers there to help teach? Or are we going to see our classrooms too large? Are the hospitals in place going to be more burdened by overcrowding? These are things you want to ask yourself. Will their children get preference over ours as it relates to pre-K when there are not enough spots for everybody? These are questions that you want answered at City Hall, right? During a city council meeting. So I've been an elected city councilman. Politics is local. You want legislators, even up to the governor, being willing to listen. Before I go out with the gold shovel, and I have one downstairs in the garage, but when we go out to break ground, we have the gold shovels we drop into the ground. But listen, and they're painted gold for the record, just in case somebody's trying to
Yeah, they are. They are plenty go.
spray painted gold. But long story short, we have to ask these questions and answer them as legislators for the people so that they know that what we call in business, and you know it, cost benefit analysis.
Right.
And if the cost far outweighs the benefit, then ask ourselves, why is it here? And it may be a data center here. I'm not going to call names out on camera right now, but I was in a city just 3 weeks ago where they're struggling with the expansion of a landfill, and
Mm.
they have water that's already one of the dirtiest bodies of water, one of the top 5 in the world, right here in Alabama,
Ooh.
identified river-wise, and they're concerned about their water, boil water not even helping. And so these are real issues we're dealing with. You have to ask yourself these questions. What's the environmental impact? Even with buildings going up. I get a lot of people in Huntsville and Mobile. What are we going to do about bringing down the cost of homes and affordability of houses? And I'm answering all these questions, but these are things you want to look at. If you make what is green land an asphalt jungle, the water has to go somewhere.
Right.
Is that going to cause erosion? Is that going to cause contamination? Is that going to cause perhaps a shifting of the ground somewhere else? And I just think we need more people who are focused on the big picture and not just how a few people can get richer.
Well, to sort of wrap things up here, here's one question I need to ask before. What is your day one priority?
My day one priority really is healthcare. I would like to make sure that expansion of Medicaid is there. I would like to make sure that we, as I said earlier, uh, do everything we can to make sure that jobs are available for people who want to work and do well in Alabama. And of course, safer communities, just partnering with every mayor we can across the state to bring everybody together and say, what can we do to make Alabama a safer place to live? When the communities are safer, neighborhoods are happier, we have a greater state that's ready to go to work and do better. So that's what I want to do on day one. Just pull everybody to the table and say, let's work together. This is not about half of Alabama. This is about all of Alabama working together.
Right, right. Well, Dr. Will Boyd, it has been great talking to you today.
Oh, I enjoyed. Is it over already?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's been great talking to you today.
Yes, sir.
So let's kind of let people know this that of course the Democratic primary is May 19th, 2026,
Yes, sir.
and the actual election is November 3rd, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, November 3rd, 2026. And so this is something I say all the time, and I'm sure you do as well. Everybody, if you're not registered to vote, this is your opportunity. You have plenty of time to get registered to vote. I think
Absolutely.
Dr. Will Boyd is a great candidate, great choice of
Thank
candidate.
you.
I don't
Thank
normally
you.
say that out loud, but
Well,
Dr.
thank
Will Boyd is a great choice for this office. Your vote matters
it does.
regardless of what anyone tells you, your vote matters. And so, again, I want to thank you, Dr. Will Boyd, and I hope we get this opportunity again.
I hope so. And if I may, I usually don't, once you're wrapping it up, I don't say much, but if people would go to my website, drwillboyd.com, they'll
Right.
find at the very top, we have ribbons for different things, but this time, especially on today is an election day in in a different state, but we have a ribbon at the top where people can actually check where their voting place is and check to see if they're registered. So please go to my website, drwillboyd.com, and you don't have to put that plug in. Please donate because I do need the help moving this campaign
Well, it is
forward.
Giving Tuesday, so thank you again. You
Thank
have
you,
a
sir.
wonderful day. And to
Too.
all my folks out there, just remember to like, share, and subscribe. You have a nice day.
Listening to Thought You Were Woke No Speed Limit Podcast.